And
So
record.
record. Oh, you blurred your background? I want to see the friends.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my bedroom. It's my office. Oh, God, excuse me. All right.
Okay.
Yes, here. Ta-da.
Welcome to my bedroom.
Oh, welcome
Oh,
again.
Karen's little friends are present for our YouTube live today. I just saw a little body with wings. So usually they're the orbs. They're all different sizes. And it was so physical. I saw it like it flew up this way. And
And it only goes that way.
really?
Hmm.
There's a little body with wings. Like it was almost physical.
Yeah, we're gonna have to find that one. Okay.
I hope it comes for our video.
Hello, everybody. Good night from the East Coast. Karen here, Quantum Healing with Tina and Karen. Here today with Tina.
Hello.
We decided to come on last minute kind of thing. We had a lot of questions that had come up from our last couple of videos about that exploration into that origin, that life origin of that soul. So we wanted to come on and answer a couple of those questions. I'm not going to answer all of them, but we're going to answer like probably do a series of them and see where it goes. And if you guys have any questions, you could write them in the chat and put
Write
it all
them
in caps.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello, Lisa. Hello, Candidly. Welcome.
Hey, girls.
It's nice to have you on. Oh, yeah, we're looking for a new moderator. Maybe Candidly. We'll nominate Candidly. Yes. So,
Okay.
so what's new?
What's new? I've just been dealing with my sick dog, Coco. He's been having a lot of issues the last couple of weeks, so that's taken up most of my time. And I'm pretty exhausted from that. So that's all that's happening with me. How about you?
Just dealing.
Just dealing.
Yeah, just dealing.
Yeah. It's
It's
like
just that
we had like a brief reprieve from that wave of darkness, and then it's like picking up again. Hardcore.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. I'm just dealing. I mean, like I have the kids and I'm trying to organize. I felt October went zoomed really, really fast that I can't even keep up with the momentum of the month. And I'm like, oh my God, it's already the end of the month. I'm in a bit of a crisis, in a crisis, not a life or death crisis, but a crisis in which like I was so confident about my daughter's makeup for Halloween, and we practiced yesterday, and she's supposed to be like a creepy looking pumpkin, but my brother-in-law was like, "Hey, I didn't know you're gonna go as a tiger," and I was like, "Oh God." When he said that, her face just went, she's either a switch up or a switch down. Switch down, she's like, close it up, like this is stupid and we're not doing this. People are here and I'm supposed to look cool. But no, it was a big fail. I felt really bad. So I was
Tiger.
Oh, Tiger. I was so pissed at him for saying that. I was like, he's like, so how's she doing? I was like, well, when you said tiger, you fucked me.
Wow.
Um,
That's so funny.
no, because I was feeling her anxiety and it was really tough. So anyway, last night I didn't sleep. I've been helping Tina out by like energetically like clearing Coco, and on top of that, like kind of like holding that space. I couldn't sleep, so I went and on YouTube to go look for videos on how to do makeup properly. So I have one more shot to practice because they're with their dad this weekend, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna ask him if she could stay with me one night, just so that we could do makeup all day. Because I really want her to feel good about her makeup, and I
Mhm.
want to feel good because I'm usually damn good at it. So it's also more for me too. So yeah, that's not really a hard thing, but yeah, it stresses me out when she's stressed because it's, you know, she's had a rough go coming in back to school, and so it's, you just want her to have one victory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's so hard on herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Hey, Sea Beach.
See
How is
beach.
everybody tonight? How
Oh
are you
yeah,
guys feeling?
see Candily's up for it.
Oh, yeah? Being
Yeah.
moderator?
So it's
Awesome.
first mod.
I'll have to look into how to do that. I just figured it out recently to let Karen be moderator. I'm really not a techie person, so we're just
And
flying by the seat of our pants over here.
yeah, and we don't have a regular schedule, so if you happen to be here, great. If not, don't worry about it. Like,
Yeah,
we're not holding you like, hey, you didn't show up.
yeah,
Very casual here, not too serious.
yeah.
Um,
Okay, so you want to go into our exploration of the matrix stuff?
I kind of like forgot it. I mean, like for it's not. I'm not deep in it, so
I,
how do you want to go about it?
well, I thought it would be interesting. So our last couple of videos we explored for a specific client. Now, when we share sessions, you guys have to remember that these are specific to that client. So for example, the copies of consciousness exploration that we did was for a specific client. We can't say that that applies to everyone here because when we do these sessions, we see that it seems like everyone comes in a different way. We did another one of those like origin type sessions recently and saw that this spark of consciousness that was existing in which seemed like somewhere outside of this system came in as almost like a flaming ball of light, right? Like into the system. And as it came in, it passed through the matrix filter and then it fractalized into all these different parts of consciousness. Do you remember that?
Fractalized. That's a good. That's not the word that I use. I used the wrong English word, probably. Now I'm all embarrassed. Sorry, Maureen. I'm broken. I'm like cowboy.
Yeah, it
Fracturized.
fractalized.
I don't know what I said. Yoo-hoo.
Yeah. So I think,
It's like
some
hearing
people
the right lyrics for the first time. You're like, what have I been singing?
and we saw that this spark of consciousness was drawn to Earth for the water, like specifically drawn in by her curiosity of the water here on the planet. Um, and so she just decided that she was going to come in. And on her way here, as she came through as that spark of light, she came through the filter, fractalized into all these parts. The part that we specifically followed landed in this beautiful space, like mountainous space. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the session that we did in terms of like the Eden, except it felt as though instead of being thrown into a body that had no survivor skills or instincts, it felt like that was already a pre-existing type, or that was already part of the download of the Matrix in that specific setting.
Hmm.
So,
Because we
yeah.
saw that she fractalized she came into this space specifically as three separate consciousnesses, consciousnesses, and
What
those
did I say?
consciousnesses became fairies in this realm, this earth realm.
Right.
And they were confused by the separation because it was the first time that they had been separated in that way into these three separate parts and three separate bodies. But the interesting thing about that was, and I would like to go back in and do more investigation for this specific session, was that when they came through the filter and into this space, they went into the water, and inside the water itself, there were these bubbles. Again, we see the
I
bubbles.
didn't even think, I mean, like I knew to go and investigate further the bubbles because I'm like, I'm saying that word again. But then it didn't feel, I guess, like the bubbles that we had seen in the first one, episode one, of this experiment. Um, but then when I tuned back in and tapped in like again, and I'm like, yeah, totally. If they were already set in there and what's the fractalized?
Yeah,
That's not Oh yeah,
yeah,
okay. Oh great. Went in,
fractals.
flew into the water and landed in those bubbles. They emerged after that and came out as fairies. So there was
Right.
some kind of creation point upon impact in the bubble, or
Yeah.
like you had perhaps insinuated or like thought of, which I wish I felt through that too, was like the matrix pod.
Right. Yeah. Because the fractal of consciousness came into that bubble, and then you explained how it felt like it was getting tight in there as if you were growing inside of this bubble. So you were
Hmm.
growing, and then that bubble opened and out came a fairy. You came out as a
Oh
fairy.
yeah, because I felt there was a lot of not resistance. What was the word? Like as if like I was almost like a butterfly, I guess, coming out of its cocoon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. And so it was you, the specific fractal of you, or well, not you, but our
Hmm.
client, and then two others that were two other fractals of herself. So there were three of them total that came out of those bubbles together. Um, and they were not used to being in separate form. So it took a little bit of adjustment time for them to get used to where they were. But like you said, it wasn't like the first session where that consciousness was thrown into a body with no survival skills, because when they came out, they had grown. And so that consciousness had grown inside the body that already had some of those survival skills as it came out. The interesting part about this was there was also other fractals of her consciousness that came into that space. One fractal of her consciousness that came into that space, you said it came into the rocks, like
Oh yeah,
it came into the rocks and then exploded in this creation. And the creation was what it was, a gnome, right?
a gnome, yeah.
Yeah. And
And
then
there's another one.
there was another one that um was Elvin.
Was it the flowers? Was that the flower one? I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, you said that the fractal of consciousness came into like this grouping of flowers, and again, like it just created this elven-like being.
Hmm.
Do you remember that?
Very vaguely,
I
but
have to
yes.
look at my notes. Yeah, so all in all, I asked like how many fractals came in or were split from that singular spark of light. And there were 8 in that space, and then 30 others that had gone into other realms or other places inside
Mm.
Earth.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yes, so this bubble thing comes up again, and I didn't ask the question while we were in it because you were experiencing it as, it felt like a positive thing, like this client or this consciousness wanted to be here. It was something that it chose to do as it was drawn in by the water. But I think there's more investigation to do here with these bubble type things, because they did feel like soul pods, like looking back on it.
Yeah. But I do think there is that that part too. It's like, I do like it here. I would like to investigate it again, not to say like this is the absolute, but I mean, I do feel that there are some that do like it here. And then it's like until you're done with it. Like, okay, I'm good. I did my experience. I do see
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's fucked up that they have, the mind wipe, but she really wanted to go back to that first life. I was really insisting.
Right.
Like, I know where I want to go. I guess she didn't even think like, well, I want to get out of here. But it's probably has to do with that filter thing. Upon entering the filter, I feel that is the initial contract. Like without
Mhm.
your consent type thing. Because it does something to you. And then it was like upon exiting, it's like, okay, well, last contract out, cutting it back in. Like by exiting.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. Because she was feeling like it was shocking to her to become matter, to be in a body, to be
Hmm.
human,
Hmm.
but she adjusted very nicely to it and ended up really loving it. They're loving that space.
Well, that
And
could be a trap in itself, right? Like, I mean,
right.
it depends on the perception that you're looking at it. Like, be like, well, that's the love bomb within this realm, because there's no such thing as that kind of like good here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
But I mean, if we are infinite consciousness, then why wouldn't we want to like just have the experience? It's just an experience, right? Like when you can really step back and observe it from a higher perspective, it's just an experience. If we are infinite consciousness, then what's a couple, 1,000 years on earth or whatever, like
in the grander scheme of things,
in the grander
we're not
scheme of
we're not trying
things.
to make excuses for this place, okay? Just so that, in case.
In
Disclaimer
case,
here. We're
disclaimers,
just
yeah.
trying to have a conversation about it in order to be a little more open about things. Like, yes, it she had it good. The other girl who came in didn't. She
The
was
other
thrown to the
fractal,
shitter. Yeah, she was thrown in a beautiful place too, but that was already traumatizing.
the first session we saw.
Yeah,
Yeah, with the copies of consciousness.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, in contrast to the fractals that were in this beautiful place and having a nice life, we went on to see what happened after that lifetime, like what she did later. And kind of, I didn't take too many notes on this, but oh, that's what we did. We went to the point in time where darkness started to infiltrate on earth, because it seemed like, again, like our first client landed in this Eden type place, this client also landed in a very Eden like place
Hmm.
where there wasn't you expressed that there wasn't duality yet.
Mm.
So we moved into that
Well,
space.
maybe she came in another D dimension, like the heaven dimension.
Well, that's what I was feeling, like it was a higher
Because
dimension,
she
like
always
a
wanted to go
fourth
back there, right?
dimension. Right. Yeah. So we saw like when the darkness started to enter, there was a change in the simulation. It was not as abundant. It was starting to get really dense. And there was some kind of like tweak they were trying to like tweak the survivor skills of the beings on the
Oh
planet.
yeah, it felt
So
very
there were,
barbaric.
right. So there was more ego and less spirit at this time as the
Hmm.
darkness started to enter. And it felt like to me, like a de-evolution, like that was happening. Like I think we've been devolving since that time.
I bet.
Like we started in a beautiful, abundant, positive space and have been devolving ever since to where we are now.
I think that's what happens with everything here, right? That's just a natural thing. You start off with a great idea and then it devolves or it changes and becomes something else because shit gets hijacked. So that's why it's really important to be on top of your shit so that it doesn't devolve.
Right. Yeah. So what did that feel like to be in that space?
I didn't like it. It felt very scary in a sense of like, this is me though coming in because, of course, my consciousness is there too. So I'm thinking, I don't know how to hunt. I don't know if that mushroom's good to eat. Like, there's those like things in my head, but I mean, I was feeling it with the body or the existence in that moment. You can't. I don't know if I could trust Bob over there. Like,
Yeah, there was a
there's
lot
a
of
lot.
distrust,
Yeah,
a lot of
tons.
distrust.
The
Yeah,
stress, questioning, uh, like how are we? It was all every man for himself.
right. Aggression, frustration.
Yeah, it was very
Um,
lower self type of space. And I could see how this could also be like well, the creator of the secondary energy of the ego, which is the entities.
yeah. Yeah, dominance, right? Like that ego
It's all toxic.
development.
Hmm.
Yeah. The ego becomes toxic at that point. Um, yeah, I remember asking like who made this decision like for the darkness to come in, and you said the only thing I wrote down was upstairs made decisions. Do you remember what that meant?
Oh, like the programmers upstairs.
The
The ones that are
programmer.
running the simulation itself. I didn't really quite see, I mean, like I saw different scenarios that were existing. It felt like as if they were all kind of like separated in their own spaces. Like over here is the nice, beautiful fairyland. Over here, it's super like barbaric, dark, mundane, khaki color space. That's what it felt like. And then over here, it's like a different type of simulation. Like, so I was seeing that, observing it as a separate type of thing. And I was wondering, like when I was exploring it, I didn't I feel like we do need to go in again, is to see like, is this how it is here? Like we're here in, North America, and then over here is a different continent, over there's a different continent or existence, or where you see that there are very super, super, super different cultures,
Mm,
you know.
yeah.
I don't know. I guess now they would have multiple programs because we are functioning from our perception and whatever else, I guess whatever the soul comes in with when we're born, right? Um, but yeah, there's so many factors now, I feel.
Yeah. Oh, so we watched what was that movie called? The Adjustment
Adjustment
Bureau.
Bureau.
Oh my God, it was so good. It was so good.
It was really well written. Well done.
Yeah, well done. Highly recommend that movie because it demonstrates how we have to fight for free will. Free will is not guaranteed, it's not given. We really have no free will when we're born into a human body. We're programmed from birth, from birth to 7 years old. We're just open in a state of hypnosis and we're being downloaded and programmed. Our ego is being downloaded and programmed with everything around us. We're
Everything.
given the culture, we're given the religion, we're
And our points
given,
of vulnerability already in there,
yeah, we're given the trauma, it's like,
or the trauma attraction
yeah, and
with the external.
absorbing everything around us. And at that point, when you're still functioning from the lower ego, you have no free will because you're running on subconscious programming 95% of the time. The subconscious is running the show. until you begin to wake up from the dream, connect with your divine spark again, and begin to allow that to lead the way. So it's only then when you begin to make free will choices, like really functioning from a place of free will. Because before that, you're just running on the program. So I thought that movie demonstrated that perfectly. And I loved how, okay, spoiler alert if you guys haven't seen it yet, but I loved how in the end, you could see their life script disappear, and they were actually carving out their own path and using their own free will to do so. So
That really hit home. That was a big body reaction for me in a sense of like, oh my God, yeah, it's true because I never saw myself doing this work. There's nowhere I was in the program of seeing myself retiring at the hospital and sticking to it for the long haul. And I was like, well, if we do this work, it's just for like, for fun, Friday night hypnosis, like
yeah, yeah, no, totally. I never in a million years would have seen my life turning out like this. I feel like when I had my NDE, I was supposed to die, but there was a part of me, I remember even consciously as it was happening, I'm like, no, I didn't come this far in this lifetime to die now. Like, that's not going to happen. That was like a conscious decision on my part to stay here because I knew and I felt like
oh,
all
you
of
wouldn't
that
have been ready to
suffering,
go.
no, all of that suffering that I had went through and been healing from was going to be useful to help others break free and achieve their own free will and sovereignty too. Like I was like, no, I'm not leaving now. Like there's something bigger for me here than just suffering. And so I feel like at that point was really when my free will started to kick in, and I started to write my own script. And it was like in that moment, all of my karma had disintegrated. All of the karma that I came in with had disintegrated. Um, so yeah, that movie was really interesting. So that's just like that's the gist of it. But the biggest part of the movie is that the Adjustment Bureau is constantly adjusting our lives depending on how they want our lives to go, according to the script that we came in with that was written by the higher ups.
Mm-hmm.
So wasn't that really interesting, like seeing how they do that?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. You could totally see how that plays out in real life or like in our physical lives. Like, man, yeah. Like they gave an example of like he was supposed to spill coffee on himself. He wasn't supposed to meet like, you know, the girl that was going to change his life or that was because together they were indestructible, I guess.
Yeah, together they were powerful. And it was like Howdy was talking about in our interview with him about I forget what it was. What is her name? Sylvia in Truman Show?
Hmm.
It was like that kind of connection, like that kind of connection that comes from outside of here that you find inside, and they weren't supposed to meet. Like the Adjustment Bureau was keeping them apart, like by any means necessary. And all it takes is one little spill of the coffee for you to be late for that bus and miss that meeting with
Hmm.
that person.
Yeah,
So it's not like they necessarily have to do these huge big events to keep you off your path, but it could be as simple as like spilling coffee and missing the bus.
definitely.
Yeah. Or showing up and wiping your memory, which they do too.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's a popular commodity here.
So, yeah. So the next day, the weirdest thing happened.
Oh, yeah,
And
that was fucking weird.
yeah, that was weird. And I know it was them, whoever they are.
Yeah, the adjustment bureau people.
Yeah, the adjustment
Things.
bureau. I'm like, there are adjustments happening over here for sure. Um, I was just sitting here, I was writing actually, and there's a little boy that lives next door and he gets off the bus at like 3 o'clock every day. He's like 6. And his mom's home. She works from home. She's always there to get him and whatever.
They're
Well, I
on
was,
top of their shit,
yeah, like really
especially
on,
when it comes to their son, you know?
yeah, super overprotective and yeah, super on top of it. Well, on this day, I was just sitting here writing, and all of a sudden I hear him like screaming and crying, and I hear like banging on something, and I thought, oh, that's weird. Like I've never heard him cry or have a tantrum or anything like that. So I like waited a second because I didn't want to be nosy and peek my head out the door, if like something was happening. Um, and then I'm like, wait, no, he's in distress. So I went out there and he's like banging on the door and no one's answering. So he's freaking out because he just got home from school and the door's not open. Like usually they just leave it open, but it was locked and the blinds were closed. And so I went over to him and I grabbed him, like, you're okay, just calm down. We're going to get your mom. I'm going to call her or whatever. And he calmed down. He was like, okay. So I brought him in to like watch his favorite show and he was fine. But I was like laying on the doorbell, and these doorbells are loud. Like they're like the most
They're
annoying
really ugly
buzzers.
sound.
They're really
Yeah,
ugly.
like they need to make it nice.
Yeah, they're really loud and ugly. And no one was coming, but the car was there. So I thought it was really strange. So I called up to the office and I told them what happened, and she was like, okay, I'll send one of the guys down, one of the maintenance guys. So he came down and I'm like, listen, like, can you go over there and like check, see if everything's okay, what's happening? So he goes in and knocks on the door. He's like, the inner door was locked. And I'm like, well, you have to go in there and
What
see if
inner
they're
door? Like the
okay.
bedroom door?
No, there's like the locked door out front and then the inside door.
Oh, like the main, but their front door-ish
Yeah.
thing. Okay.
So that was locked. I'm like, you have to go in there. And so he did. He went in there. He's like, well, I just like screamed maintenance, maintenance, like really loud, and no one's coming out. He said the bedroom door is shut. And I'm
I'd be
like,
like, oh
well,
my God, they're all fucking dead. Like, that would be
that's
me.
what,
I'd be like, they're fucking dead.
well, that thought ran through my mind. And I'm like, just go in and go closer to the door and yell. Maybe they'll hear you if you go closer. So he did. And they finally woke up. They were sleeping. Like, yeah, yeah. The dad stumbles to the front, peeks his head out. He has these like dark circles under his eyes, looks completely out of it, like gone.
Mind wiped.
Yeah, so confused. I was like, I felt weird and nervous about letting the kid go over there because he looked so out of it. But I'm
Yeah,
like,
and the mom didn't come out.
no, she
Have
didn't
you
come
seen them
out.
since?
No, I haven't seen them since.
No?
No,
Oh my
but
God.
I know they've been in and out because I've seen the car moved. I just haven't seen them. But yet they're probably avoiding me because they're so embarrassed, right?
Yeah, totally. That's so Filipino.
Yeah, they're so
I would be
embarrassed.
so embarrassed too. So shameful. Like, oh my God.
Hmm.
Or they're
Yeah,
probably embarrassed because they don't know what the fuck happened to them either.
right.
Or they're like, we don't have a son. They mind wiped them bad.
Yeah, that's what it felt. It really, that day after we watched that movie, totally felt like they were just like sending us a message like, yeah, we're real. And this really happens.
Yeah. Poor
Because there
neighbors.
was something else, there were other things that were happening too. That was the big thing, but there were other little things that were happening too on that day. I can't remember what now. But yeah, really interesting movie. And I think it really speaks to this reality, how it's manipulated, the lack of free will that we really have until we wake up and actually fight for that And I thought that was interesting that they used the word fight, because you really do have to fight for your own free will.
Totally. You do.
Yeah.
It would be ignorant to assume that we have it here.
Yeah. You know, people call this a free will universe, and I don't think that's necessarily true until you begin to wake up from the dream, because you're literally just running on programs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, but the entities are hooking in to those
Yeah, there's a lot
programs.
of influence.
So
You
a
have to
lot of
really
influence.
unplug yourself, like take the
And
ball off everything.
yeah, and the adjustments that are happening to throw you off all the time.
Right. Remember after we watched that movie? And then both of our internets went
Oh,
kaput at
yeah.
the same time. They
Yeah.
said that too. That was an example too in the movie. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, when we like glitch your internet, you know,
Yeah.
and both of ours went at the same time.
Same time. Yeah.
I was like talking to myself. I'm like, hello, hello. And I'm like looking, I was like, where the hell did she go? And the same thing happened to her too, on her end.
Mhm. And we were on Zoom. I was signed out of Zoom. So the internet went down and I was signed out of Zoom.
Yeah. Bizarre.
Yeah.
Bizarro land.
So it was like they were just sending us messages like, yeah, we're real. This really happens.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
probably one of the frogs up there that's just like typing. Just
Yeah,
change
one of
this
the
here,
frogs.
change to that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think the script is hugely related to astrology and our birth charts. That's very true. But I think we have the capability of breaking free from that and not allowing those things to rule our lives anymore. And that's part of fighting for free will.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a couple of questions from our last couple of videos. One of them is, why do our loved ones seem to become NPCs?
I don't know if they become, I think there's a lot of factors again, not just, they're not all going to be, NPCs. They're not all going to be, I think, like us. I mean, I could have been an NPC if I didn't wake up. I was running through a program very deeply. I still had my awareness. Like I was enough that you're kind of running an enmeshed program or something
Mhm.
where it's really you, like the observer, and then it's your program self that's running both
Yes.
shows, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think because like of yeah, how deeply programmed you are, how traumatized you are, um, how susceptible you are, like experience wise too. I don't know. Like I see it in my own family. Like I had a couple of ideas of like family members that were true source players. Um, they ended up like getting the V shot, and then after that,
Devolved.
devolved. It's like
Y-
okay,
Yeah, because we can either evolve or devolve. Like you can go one way or the other.
yeah, you could go to
So you,
Eden or you could go to Khaki Land.
yeah, you come in. So what we've seen is you come in. Some people really only come in with the programmed part of them, the ego self, the lower self. They don't have the divine spark within
Component, yeah.
their soul. And
But they still have the capacity to.
but right, they have the capacity to evolve based on the choices that they make. It's harder for them because they don't have that underlying awareness. Like you said, like I was asleep, but I had this underlying awareness that was always observing. You always knew things weren't right here,
But you're
that I
just kind of
didn't
going with
belong,
it.
that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Right. That's the source awareness. That's the divine spark within you that is there underneath the programming. Some people don't have that.
Yeah.
They really don't. And that's why they can't really evolve from the program. They might even kind of pretend to be evolving from the program, or even, consuming information or looking at this kind of information, but they're not really evolving because it's just theory. They're not putting it into practice.
Yeah, exactly. It's yeah, totally. I don't think you become one. Everyone has the ability to evolve, whether you are pure blue ball or blue ball. That doesn't sound good. And or a mixture of the purple blue, you know?
Yeah.
It depends.
It's all consciousness, and consciousness is always either evolving or devolving.
Mhm.
And it's based on the choice. That was a really pretty sparkly one.
Yeah. See, they go that way.
Yeah, it's based on the choices that we make. But there are so many factors involved. And that's, for someone with just the lower self part, just the ego part, it becomes really difficult to evolve past that without
Yes.
that other awareness there. Now, why do some people who seem to have that awareness devolve into what we call NPCs, which I don't like that word because it really creates separation, and almost like
Like you just need to label it.
yeah, almost like a superiority, like we feel superior to them, and we're not. It's just a difference in consciousness. And so some people, I think, seem to devolve because of many factors, like Karen mentioned. The shot is a big one. If they weren't already conscious before that, then there's very little chance of them becoming conscious after it.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
part that makes me sad. But they still have a chance. Like there's always a chance here.
there's always a chance,
There's
yeah.
always a choice. That's the one thing that we've noticed in our things. There's always, even in an exploration, where they say it's all by choice. Everything that you do is all by choice.
Right. Yeah. But
So,
the choices get limited though by certain things,
mhm,
like trauma, for example. It limits your choices. The shot is another one that limits your choices. The more like layers you add on to that ego self, the less chance you have of evolving, and you actually begin to de-evolve a little bit. And I think that's what's happening here is we're continuing, some of us are continuing to devolve, some are evolving, and there's like everyone in between. So we're just all at different levels of evolution, of different levels of consciousness. No one is better or less than another. It's just different. And the other thing that really puts us at a disadvantage is the memory wipe, having to wake up from the programming every single lifetime,
yeah,
you know?
totes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, our loved ones, a lot of them, it's because their egos are out of balance that they seem to be devolving a bit, because the ego gets bigger and the divine spark gets smaller. And when that's out of balance, they can seem to become more programmed because they actually are.
Mhm.
Yeah. And they
Yeah.
their over identification with the material realm. And the whole issue we have here is our spiritual immaturity and our over identification with materialism. The lack of spirit in our lives is what is creating this whole mess here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
True.
So then next, can soul degradation turn someone into an NPC?
Say that again.
Can soul degradation turn someone into an NPC?
I don't know if they can, but in the understanding that we saw, right? Integration of the ego, but then there was one on the other contrary.
Right.
right? So
So
maybe, like, I don't know,
it would
but
take a
maybe,
lot. I
yeah.
think it would take a lot. It really takes a lot to snuff out the divine spark. I mean, the targeted people that we've worked with, we see that they have to put layers upon layers upon layers upon layers on these
Yeah,
people
removal.
in an attempt to snuff out that spark. That's their ultimate goal, is to snuff that out. But it's rare, it's very rare that they really can. So I would say that with most of the degradation that happens, it gets to a really, really low point, but most of the time that spark is still present, even if it's really, really tiny. Even with the entities, like when we do a spirit releasement session, not a remote spirit release, but like actually having a conversation with them in a hypnosis session. I think that might have been that fairy. Um, even they still have a tiny spark of light. So it takes a lot to really snuff out that spark.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. Like when you are hungry or you have to do something, do you actually think it in your head like I'm hungry or I'm tired or you have those processing thoughts that come in? Like that is green. That is that's not a word, Karen. Like that kind of stuff.
Like an internal dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, I've heard that there are some people that don't have internal dialogue.
Yeah.
Now that's for like speculation. Is that an NPC trait? Maybe. Is that a degraded soul? Maybe. Like it's
Right.
that's one thing that you could kind of ask friends like in your circle to see,
Yeah.
like a poll, community poll.
Yeah.
I have that. I think a lot. So
Yeah.
I think that's another, but that could also be the ego. I don't know. I have no idea what's happening.
Yeah, I think there are a lot less NPCs than we think. I think most people that are asleep have a divine spark. They're just highly programmed and traumatized.
Yeah, and they're not there yet.
Right. Just
Like
like
they
we
haven't
used to
evolved yet.
be.
Yeah,
Right.
took some time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to scan through. Hello, Golden Sun, Michael Leon, Maureen.
Hi, Marine. Hi,
You were
everybody.
talking about your session. Giovanna,
Hello.
Hacky Poobles,
I like that name, Giovanna.
Natural Shadow in the Graveyard. Nice to see you guys.
Pecky Pooples. I really like that name.
Oh, Lisa,
And
tonight's your
Lisa
big
left.
night.
Oh,
Yeah,
good. Oh, good.
she
Good luck
had
with
some
that.
work to do tonight. Packy Poobles wants to know, how do you keep your spirits up living in this reality when everything is an illusion?
You just learn how to play the game. You learn how to play the game and you know how to connect with your true spark within. Um, there's a lot of healing involved. I mean, I speak for my journey in order to get there. How can you create it? You create it. You're a creator being, so you can create your reality, but it requires a lot of work inside because when you clean up all the junk inside, then your outside world will reflect that.
Mhm.
Things won't get so annoying or get so um it won't create like a reaction within you. You're just gonna hold your reality or the outside world as it is and be like, all right, cool. I'm good.
So detaching from it a bit and kind of seeing it from an observation point of view.
Yeah. It is
Yeah.
hard. I mean, it takes time because you have to really get to know yourself so much. inside and out, light self and shadow self. And it's not easy to see the shadows. Like it's really difficult to go there.
Mm-hmm.
But until you can courageously do so, even if little by little, or well, it's work. Work is work, and it gets easier.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
everything is just fine. Like it's not as hard as it once was. It's easier to get up, get out of bed in the morning. It's easier to be like, all right, cool, or I didn't have a good day today, but it's fine. Like I'm not gonna beat myself up so hard for it. You just
Yeah.
kind of go with the flow, and then that's it.
Yeah. And you don't feel that dread, that overwhelming dread
That's
waking
a
up
good
in the
word.
morning
Yeah.
and the anxiety. Yeah. Yeah. Anything you can do to, that feels good to you, that feels in alignment with you, that makes you happy, that makes you feel more positive, then you should do those things. Like if digging deep into some of this more depressing information sends you spiraling and ungrounds you and makes you paranoid and anxious and depressed, then detach from that. Definitely not consuming any news, and even some of this kind of content sometimes isn't it's not good for people, especially those that are just waking up. Like
Mm-hmm.
we've had years to come to this point to process through it all, and some people are literally just waking up in the last couple years being thrown into it and being
Yeah,
like,
and you
this
have to make a
place.
decision already, Like it feels like you have to make a choice right then and there instead of sitting back and looking at it all.
Right. And it feels really overwhelming. So my advice would be to detach from it a bit. Know that you don't have to know everything. You really only not have to know yourself. And when you know yourself and you trust yourself, then the outer world becomes way less important. And you start to detach from it a little bit, and you're able to see it from a more neutral perspective. For sure. Going within is the most important thing, because the outer world, there's so much confusion, and the confusion is weaponized, even and especially in the spiritual community. There's a lot of weaponized confusion. So really the best place for everyone to be is just like going within, getting to know yourself, your patterns, and doing the healing work, because that's what's going to bring you back in alignment so that you have the possibility of exiting. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
If you like that advice, please subscribe.
Yeah, one can be awakened and partially fall back to sleep. Getting out requires an enormous amount of energy. And as Carlos Castaneda's Don Juan would say, you must stalk it. Yeah, it's true. People can fall back to sleep, and I think that's even more dangerous.
Yeah, I think my sister went back to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's the
I
one who
think
welcomed me in my awakening, and then she ditched me. Well, she left me with Tina, thankfully, but I mean, like, I was happy to have somebody here who knew what I was talking about. Like when I talk, she listens to me, but I know I lose her now.
What do you talk to her about?
Oh, like well, I never talked about soul trap stuff, let's say, but I just don't go there.
Yeah, that's too far.
But I have talked to God, I felt really drunk though yesterday, even though I didn't drink nothing. I was very sober yesterday, but I felt very drunk with my family yesterday. I was talking, I was like, oh yeah, the Grim Reaper came for the 1 year anniversary, and I saw the Grim Reaper in physical form the day that, our grandmother died. I felt very hot.
You said that to them? You
But
told
I'm
them
not,
that
yeah, I said it. I said it. Said it all.
That's brave.
Yeah, it
And how
is.
did they respond?
My parents just don't, they ignore it, like normal. That's fine. I didn't say it to my parents, but I was saying it to my cousins that were there. And they're all like, yeah, totally. It's so awkward. It was so awkward. Like I feel like the crazy one, like, well, your cousin's off a rocker, like that kind of thing.
So let's explain this a bit. So Karen's grandmother died a year ago, and on that day, we've talked about it before. She saw the Grim Reaper
In the physical form.
in the physical form working through a person at the nursing home,
Yes.
at which we viewed in a session later,
Yes.
right? And so what was it, last night or the night before, on the anniversary of her death, he
Yeah,
came
last night.
again.
Yeah. Came again, um, during sleep and was like, we meet again. I'm like, I guess. And then buried me under like all of these things, like veins and hot like blood feeling. Like it was weird feeling. But I wasn't like scared. I didn't give me a body reaction.
Hmm.
I don't know what that meant. I was like, all right, I don't know what that means. Cool. Am I dying? I was like, I don't know.
So you were telling that to your family.
Not the dying part. Like I was in veins and in blood, No, not that part. But if they're watching, yes, I left that out. Um, no, I was talking about like how I had a dream about the Grim Reaper again on the anniversary. That's all. Because I saw
Okay.
it in physical form. And that's
Hmm.
really out there. Very much out there.
Especially for Catholics, yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel like they fully really grasp what I do.
No,
No,
definitely not.
I don't think so. I mean, it's very easy for me to put out there like, oh yeah, there's entities. Um, they hear that word a lot from me, so I'm pretty sure they don't hear it anymore. But what I like is that my kids are very on top of it. They know what's going on. They're really in it. They're just like, "Oh, mom, I think that was an entity." I'm like, "Probably." Like they could see it. So I think
Yeah,
that's great.
that is great because so many parents are afraid to talk to their kids about it because they're afraid to scare them. And if you're talking to them about it from a place of fear, then yeah, they're going to be scared because they're going to feel you're scared. So if you're not
Right.
confident in yourself and your ability to transmit that information without feeling fearful or worried or scared, then you shouldn't talk to them about it. You should center yourself and get to a place where you aren't fearful, but you feel empowered and you can transfer that energy to them, that feeling of empowerment and confidence. That was a really bright one.
Oh,
Um,
I always miss it.
to the children. So, if you talk to them about it and make it a natural everyday part of your conversation, because the spirit world is always here, whether we see it or not, it's around us all the time. And pretending like it doesn't exist is futile, especially for children, because most children can see somewhat. So I love that, Karen was doing clearings um for Coco, and she had the kids tapping in too. And Buggy saw what grays, he saw grays that were attacking Coco because they wanted to get to me. And they know that the way they can get to me is through making Coco sick. Right? So
Yeah,
you walked
and he
him.
don't know that.
All right, he doesn't know that.
He's 11. I mean, he doesn't listen. Like he's not in our everyday conversation. He doesn't know that
Right.
because I made him investigate. Like, what else do you see? You know?
Yeah, and the crazy thing about that he picked up on that is I woke up that day feeling that. I'm like, I know, I just kept hearing we're under attack, we're under attack, we're under attack. That they're trying to wear me down because they know that the only way that they can really get to me is through him by making him sick. So it stresses me, lowering my defenses, and they can get to me that way. So when he said that, I was like, I knew it. I knew it. And I know that was real what he picked up on.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
he cleared them, right?
Oh yeah. He told me I was driving, going to the death anniversary, like to my parents' house. So we had a bit of a drive. So I was just directing. I was like, could you just tap in a Coco? Because I haven't, like, I'm driving. So he goes in. Like, this is all normal conversation with our family. Like, as if, like, oh, do you want to eat a sandwich?
Right.
I go, could you just go in and check the dog? Check on him and see if he's saying anything, does he have a message or whatever. So he goes in, he's like, his eyes are closed. And then he says, he's like, yeah, left lung, there's like a hole in there, like a portal, and there's grays in there. I'm like, well, how many? He's like, there's a lot of them. I was like, well, how many? He's like, there's like hundreds. I was like, well, get rid of them. So his eyes are closed, very calm. And he's like, okay, I got rid of them. And I go, good. And he's like, yeah, I tortured them and I did, like, and I'm like, whoa, like, you didn't have to do it. So that's extra. But I guess if that's how he sees that he rids them, then sure. And I was like, was there anything else? And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, hold on. And I go, did they say anything? Like, did they say why they were there? And he's like, no, I got rid of them. They're gone. I go, but you'll know, like, if you connect back, you can rewind time and connect back, you can figure out what was the purpose. So he goes in again and he's like, they want to get to Tina. I'm like, oh, interesting. And then I go, can you go look in there? Make sure that they didn't leave anything behind. And his eyes are closed. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, they left a ticking time bomb. I was like, what does that mean? I go, get rid of it. Like, throw it out, like, destroy it and get rid of it. He's like, yeah. I go, what does that mean? He's like, either like they're, ticking time bomb, like they're trying to make him sick, or like it could be like, like he didn't want to say it because he loves Coco. He's like, I didn't want to say it, but I'm like, oh, like if he dies, kind of thing. Like, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. And he's like, yeah, yeah. Like, I go, good, you got rid of it? He's like, yeah, I got rid of it. And he's like, oh, that's how they're gonna get to Tina, through him, if something happens to him. So he put the pieces together himself.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah.
And
And they closed the portal at the end. I made sure of that.
and it connected with what Julia saw the day before, because she saw my bud who died last year. Was that last year?
2021, January.
It was Coco's brother. And she saw a dog that looked like him with a skull next to it.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
I didn't like that either, because I know they're trying to take him out. I know they're trying to take him out. He would have been gone a long time ago if we weren't on top of the protection and the clearing and the support and all of the things. They've been trying to take him out. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I guided her through that. She didn't know what was going on. I mean, like, what goes on with him. I could tap in, no problem with him. And so I just want to see, like, to compare with her, uh, you know, just tapping into to Coco. Like, just see what's going on. I didn't give her any information. I go, is he saying anything? Is there anything? Like, just do a body scan, like from top to bottom, and see if there's anything. And she was like, yeah. Ears, nose, throat, like she was saying stomach. And I didn't get stomach, but I was like, oh, interesting. But then it made sense because of what's going on, like swallowing and all
The
that.
drainage from up here is, yeah, it's going down his stomach. She was
Yeah.
spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is how amazing kids are. And it's because they haven't shut off that ability yet, because Karen's been talking to them about these things for a long time. So they're not afraid. Most kids will shut down their sight because they're afraid of the entities they're seeing in their room at night and all those kinds of things. So when we can normalize spirit in their lives, then they can, that will enhance their abilities, and they're still in touch with their imagination, which is our connection to spirit. So they're not afraid to use it.
Totally. There was one time, like, I was driving with my daughter, and she was saying that her dad's sister, who passed away like years ago, I never even met her, was there in her vision. She's like, oh yeah, she's here. And I'm like, okay, well, go check to see if she's real. I go, just chop her up. Like, pretend you have a knife or a sword and just chop her up. And if she comes back together, it's really her. And if she doesn't, it's not. It's fake. And so she's like, doing it. And she's like, she didn't come back together. I'm like, okay, well, there you go. Not real. And she's like, all right. Like, I guess she just like, as if nothing, like, okay. I go, so just make sure. I go, if you ever feel things or presences that may feel good or look good to the eye, you just have to check it. I go, the good ones are going to come back together and not mind that you did it. And then the ones that are trying to come in your field or whatever, trick you will dissolve. And she's like, okay.
That's really cool. Yeah. Hi, CMG. Nice to see you.
Hey, Sam.
Yeah, there are lots of orbs and Karens. I'm gonna pin you for a second. Ask them to come out.
Yeah, it's like the dancing frog on like the singing frog on Bugs Bunny, the one that has performance anxiety, doesn't perform in front of people.
Yeah, I was telling everyone earlier that I saw a little tiny fairy with wings. Karen's seen it before, but that was the first time I saw it on her side on the camera. It was so physical. Oh wait, it's not pinning you.
Oh, it's pinning you.
No, it's going back and forth.
Oh,
I don't know why it does that.
maybe it's a different program when it comes to live. It's okay. No
Yeah.
biggie.
Okay, let's check questions. Let's see. What happens when 1/3 light and 2/3 darkness can no. 1/3 darkness and 2/3 light can no longer be maintained in the simulation?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I'm gonna add that to our next exploration.
You know what it feels like? I feel as though they need to say that. Sorry, I was looking at that thing that just flew. Like as if maybe they just need to say that, like it could be a programming too, for us to believe that that's a fact when it's not.
What?
Like we need darkness here.
Oh, no. Yeah, I don't believe that.
Like
I think that's a
you need
deception.
it, right?
No, but that's what, so the NDE that comes from an NDE that a
Mhm.
guy had where it was a really amazing one.
I've relayed that too, but I
Oh,
feel
yeah?
that could, yes, like where it's in creating of the balance of the system.
Yes,
Like,
because
is
that's
that
how the system, well, we see when we go back farther that the darkness wasn't always here, that there
right?
was an infiltration that happened.
Right.
So yes, I do feel like that we need darkness for contrast. That whole thing is an absolute deception. I don't feel
Yeah.
like that's true at all.
Because just like how in the last bubble we did, how the big, bubble of light was coming in, it wasn't getting enticed to come in. It just came in. Or it saw like the water, or I don't know, whatever reason it was. It just came in. It wasn't like I need to be there. Maybe that happens too to the dark energies too that come in through the filter. I mean, I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm just saying, like, just how it came in. Maybe it's the same. Like we got infiltrated in that way. They just happen to come in and then they're stuck here themselves and are surviving because they have no survivor skills. So they're trying to look for the purple balls
Right.
or the blue
Yeah,
balls.
to siphon the light. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because those entities are usually working for a master, someone higher up. And the master will tell them all kinds of lies. So they're lied to just like we're lied to. And those masters will tell them, even though that they're siphoning the light and using it for their own purposes, the masters will tell them that if they like positively polarize, if they want to use the light for their own purposes, then they will be destroyed. They will dematerialize. The light will kill them. Like all of these lies that they're told so that they continue to do the dirty work of the higher ups. That's how it works. They're all the entities that are like working and hooking into us and all that kind of stuff. They're
Mhm.
all being deceived too. They're all slaves. They're slaves to the higher ups.
Yeah.
Doing the dirty work for them.
Yeah. And I was getting like in just insights right now about like if the programmers up there were to literally what it felt like to me is if they were going to erase the darkness or whatever, we in turn get erased too at some to some degree because we hold it. We hold the duality inside of that space until it becomes integrated or balanced out. So that would take out everybody almost.
Mhm.
So that, I think that's another reason why they say we got to balance it out or whatever. Or if not, because if we think about it as a computer program, if you're just going to highlight all the shit, we all hold the shit too because we're part of the damn program. And so that'll destroy everybody.
Right. So then the question, this is a really interesting question. Someone commented, but I was actually thinking about it too. And it's like, if we are copies of consciousness that were we created here, then are we actually part of the simulation itself?
I'd say yes and no. I think everybody is like either like we saw that there was copies, we saw that there was like things, and I I say yes and no. They can't make it so clear cut. It has to be everything, all
Because
possibilities, like a
and
computer system.
because what the visual that springs back to me is from a specific hypnosis session in one of Michael Newton's Lives Between Lives, where they were seeing the creation of souls.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, those souls are being created within this system.
We've only done 2 bubbles. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we know what we know via those 2 bubbles and just through our own tapping in and,
Right.
but
But I could tell that person was being, what's the word? That person was being monitored because they could feel like another energy. They were up high somewhere in the higher realms of this simulation. And like they really weren't supposed to be there. That's what they were like feeling like. They were only getting so much information.
right.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, there's like some kind of veil or something like that.
Mhm.
Or they saw the observer who didn't cloak themselves like I do. What are they doing here?
Yeah.
Oh,
So, okay. Yes, how each of us got here is unique. Do you
yeah.
get a sense that the returning home that Halliday spoke of in your recent live stream is referring to the place realm where the original consciousness have come from? Yes.
Like home, like outside of this program home, outside of the computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it feels like to me. Home feels like we exist outside of here, like where we saw those sparks being copied
Yeah. It feels
and
like
brought
when you,
in.
upon entering, like for those that have entered, not being copied, but entered in and get that zappy type thing, it's like you kind of leave your coat at the door. And then when you leave, you get your coat back and you go back home.
So what is it like coming through that filter?
Well, exactly like a tennis racket for mosquitoes.
Oh,
It's that zap. Like it has that feel to it.
like electrocuted.
Yeah, practically. That's probably what gives the mind wipe. I mean, and it throws you off for a loop, getting thrown into the water and into a bubble. I mean, like, yeah, that would fuck me up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the static on a computer screen or TV screen.
Um, yeah, interesting.
White
So,
noise.
so after our last session, through which, yeah, we actually connected and saw that what we call the Demiurge is this like web like system of AI with those connecting neurons, just like the brain. It's just like a human brain, but it's inorganic, right?
Yeah.
Um, do you want to talk about what happened after that?
Um, am I right?
Yeah.
Oh, I had a little conversation with Mr. Demiurge. I was able to tap in. I had some really freakishly things happen after that, which I don't think we've really discussed because of like what's been happening with Coco. Not freakish, but I felt like I was going into psychosis, which I didn't talk to you about.
No,
Yeah.
tell
Very,
me more.
very close. Like I was feeling crazy. So I'm
Really?
like, ooh, what's that? So I knew it had something to do with the interaction, probably because it's an inorganic react interaction.
Hmm.
Um, and so it kind of threw me off center because of the imbalance, I guess.
Hmm.
But speaking to, yeah, I was questioning my reality, exactly how psychosis people are. I was in the shower and I thought I was going nuts. Like
Why?
I felt crazy. I don't know how to explain.
Like, what
I,
were you having thoughts or?
yeah, thoughts like this is not real. You're going crazy. You've just been attacked now. Like you thought it was a good interaction, but now you're overtaken. Like that kind of intrusive things. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like melting. Like no, it was but it was very brief. It didn't last very long. I had
Huh.
to get a grip on my shit and be like, okay, come back. And that's when, oh yeah, that's when I was telling you about how I was like saying, no, I am not going to be enticed by anything. I am relying only on my own spark. I'm relying only on my God spark, my true God spark inside to lead the way. That's why I was feeling really paranoid after we did some sessions where I was like, did that come out clear? Did that come out okay? Because I can't think or like it's not coming to me open.
Hmm.
So there was like a period of like woozy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it felt like fear and paranoia.
Fear and paranoia, yeah, I would say. Like a psychosis almost. I could have gone there, but I was not permitting it. I was like, no, you're sovereign. Like you know what is true and what is not, or whatever. At least in this moment, you know what is true and what is not in this now moment.
Hmm.
So I was
And this
like,
was after your conversation with the Demiurge.
yes. It was a very um very adult conversation with the demiurge, it felt. Again, I didn't feel fear speaking to it. I felt very neutral. It felt very as a matter of fact, like this is what it is. It's not, I didn't feel any emotion coming from it. It wasn't like, going in there like Mr. Evil. Um, I had chopped it up while I was speaking to it to make sure that it was not an entity pretending to be something. Um, so I was very like in it. I was in a trance the whole time going home from that drive. So yeah, and I was able to speak to it in that way, but I got a lot of really interesting insights, but I was like, okay, I even my skeptical self was like, all right, well, I don't know what to do with this information really. Like, how is it going to change my life? I don't know. So I didn't give too much power to it. I was like, I shared it with Tina and I didn't, I'm like, what do I do with this? I don't know what to do with it. Like, I don't know.
Because it felt like when we talked about it, like it was trying to convince you that this was benevolent and all is well and like those kinds of things, right?
Yeah, I think it was trying to play on the light part of it, not like don't look at me like I'm the bad guy, or I'm all bad. It felt very neutral to me. That's all.
Yeah.
Neutral, and I guess it depends on which hand it feeds. Like, are you of the highest Christ light? Like, or are you of the shadow? Like it depends where you're distributed inside. So I don't know. I didn't feed it. I didn't meet it in a place of I did meet it in a place of skepticism and like guards up completely, but open. Open enough to be like, okay, tell me. Tell me more. I need to feel into it. Like instead of just listening to your words.
Hmm. What did you feel from it?
Very neutral. It was just the creator, and it was like, let's just see what happens. Like let's see where it goes. That was his ultimate goal. I say he. It felt it was masculine energy mostly, but let's just see where the creation goes
Hmm.
and how it evolves in itself and its own choices. That's what he was saying too. Very much adamant. Like, you have choices. I'm like, yeah, I agree. That's true.
Hmm. Yeah, but are those choices made of free will if we're asleep,
See,
if we're programmed?
I didn't ask those questions.
See,
See, now
that's
we
why
gotta
you
go
need me
back.
to be your guide.
Well, you need to come home with me sometime.
Yeah. Candidly says the Gnostics yelled about this said to be insane. So if Karen had contact, she got slimed.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got bamboozled a little bit, but I mean, I took what resonated and I left the rest. Like, I mean, it was an interesting interaction to say the least. I've had this interaction already before, but played out as the good god of, like that we're programmed to think exists here. So it was the same energy of it. Very forthcoming and very easy to create whatever, like really playing into the creations. Um, but yeah.
So this is the same energy that showed up for you years ago
Hmm.
and presented itself as what?
God.
And what did God look like?
Oh, I don't remember what he looked like, but he probably looked like the typical beard white man.
Yeah. I think I remember you saying he had like shorts and flip-flops on or something like that. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. And so he showed up to you, and how did that interaction go?
He just like I was able to go into my own consciousness or imagination and just create live like right there and there, where I was able to kind of like astral travel, I would say, not out of body, astral travel. um
Mm.
yeah, that's what it just was. And I went in different spaces of time and place very
Mm.
rapidly and really cool. It was a really nice experience. Coco, okay.
He just woke up. Can you hang out for a second?
Yeah,
Or do you want to take a little break?
I'll look at the questions. You can go do what you
Okay.
need to do. I'll see what's up. Yeah, it's true. Candidly, I mean, again, I'm not giving too much power into my interaction with the Demiurge. I think also like I'm looking at it also from a very neutral standpoint. I'm not picking any sides like you're bad, you're good. It's like just answer my questions and let me do the discerning. So, but yeah, it totally left me in a space. I think because not necessarily, ooh, how do I go about this? Like, I don't even know how to explain. I felt like when I was kind of in a state of like a near psychosis, it was perhaps tapping like my doubt, um, a programming of that I am in the presence of the creator of this this trap or this place, this earth, this matrix, this whatever you want to call it. So of course, like, it's not maybe a twang of like inferiority of like, whoa, like who are you going up against? Are you and it's crazy about like, I don't want to use the word worthy because I mean, but it's like, who's he to talk to me? Like, who the hell am I to talk to him? Like the programmer of this matrix. But I think we all have the capabilities of doing so. Um, but yeah, it felt like as if it was like my lower self was being triggered or tapped into that of the unworthiness. So I think that's why I was like questioning it. And I felt like, oh my God, like even when I was very aware of that was happening in real time, I'm like, you are tapping into the lower self. And so this is a hook and point for these entities to play with your mind because they know that my mind is my point of vulnerability. So yeah, of course they were like, I know how they roll. I was just kind of like trying to like do my kung fu moves like in the shower, like get away from me, like get out of my face. So yeah, it was really difficult to be in that. Not it was fear. I have to like, that's true. It was fear, but in a very conscious way of knowing what the events were unraveling and unrolling, and how, I mean, like, you're not like, once you have your point of vulnerability open, that door, those fuckers are going to come right in really fast and go exactly like where they need to go. So um so that being said, I'm like, was I slimed? Maybe. I'm not going to say no. I could have been. I'm not going to put it past the creator of this place, who we don't know yet. We don't know on a much more, like, we haven't been able to have more conversations. I feel like we're probably going to have to do those too. That's going to be part of the investigation process too. Go to the source of this place and have that conversation. um so yeah, but I took that as an opportunity to grow too, because then I had to check with myself where I feel good, but then a little thing like that can throw you off course. So yeah, it showed me my unworthiness. It showed me my fear. It showed me that I shouldn't pay into the thoughts, because they know that my vulnerability is my thoughts. It's not going to be one thought that comes in, as we see it with people who think a lot, overthink. In my case, they were throwing it at me like arrows, boom, 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 one at a time, because they knew that it had to go quicker than my process. And therefore, me, playing into it, that I can't even catch that this is a blatant attack. So that was my process. I'm okay now. I'm still working through things. I had a little bit of a fractured, like, not a fractured, but like a subpersonality, like a younger subpersonality come out, and working through that. It's all like, it's all work in progress. I think that's like the thing. We're always a work in progress. It's never going to be perfect. Like, even us, as I don't like to coin us as healers, we're not healers, but we heal ourselves, and that way, with our own tools, that we're able to help and guide and walk people towards themselves and their healing. Oh, there's our little Cokie. Hi, Cocos. He's such a sweet boy. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, it's totally, I agree. It was a very valuable experience for me. So it really depends, like, you could look at it and be victimized by like, oh, see, he's out to get everybody. It doesn't really matter. Or I'm like, no, I need to look at how that triggered me. How did I get so close to a potential psychosis? It was because of the multiple arrows that were thrown at my thought forms, which was a point of vulnerability. I don't know if you heard all that before. Oh,
I didn't. I took a go outside.
okay. Yeah. I'll just have to hear the replay.
I heard some of it.
Yeah.
Go, baby.
Oh yeah, totally. Golden Sun. Questioning sanity from time to time is perfectly normal. Why would we expect any deity to be what we consider sane? Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think we need to do that's all part of the other points in which you have to check yourself just throughout your how you're traversing this mind fuck.
Right. And I think that's a good example too of how connecting with these entities can leave an opening, especially if you have a vulnerability.
Yeah, I was saying in like as I was explaining to them how when I was in reflection of how I was really like stepping into like convincing it. I'm like, no, 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 I'm going to trust myself. I'm going to trust me. I don't need any of your superpowers or any upgrades and programs or whatever. I'm going to do it all on my own. And then my lower self part is like, well, maybe you need a little booster. And I'm like, shut up. Like, no, I'm not consenting to that. No. I go, we have everything that we need. Like, so stepping up and allowing which voice or who's going to take the driver's seat within. And it triggered also a worthiness within me of like, am I even worthy to even speak to this higher up thing? Like the controller, the creator of this matrix? Like, who the hell am I to speak to the creator here? So with that unworthiness was opening that part where I was starting to feel uneasy. Like, did I
Mhm.
contract into something? Did he get me at a point where I'm not sturdy or steady? And
Mhm.
then after that, when I was saying my point of vulnerability is my thoughts, I go, for sure, at that point when I was feeling that fear in my body, the the entities probably came in, and like I was saying, I go, how they put in the thoughts to people. For me, they were
Mhm.
coming in like arrows so that I couldn't even catch the first thought upon arrival. They were just throwing it at me so that I could lose focus.
Right. And that's what they do to people to cause psychosis. Like that's real. That's how they do it.
Yeah. So I was able to catch it in that shower, all naked.
Well, and that's
Yep.
interesting too, because they have water is almost like a shield. So I think that was helpful for you.
Yeah, thankfully. That's true. I'm like, yeah, that's true. How do they get to me in the shower? Oh,
Well, I think the bath, like being submerged in water, is more helpful, but definitely water acts as a shield.
mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah.
thankfully. So I don't know if this being again we're coming from a space of like it has to be evil because it's it has a scary name to it. Like it's not a very flattering name, like
Okay.
Susan. I'm just kidding. No offense, Susan. But it's not something that we like when we feel through that, it doesn't really feel so welcoming. Um, but I'm trying to view it from a very neutral space, not trying to pick a side like he's got to be bad, he's got to be good or whatever. I don't feel that either way. I do feel it will show you from the space that you come from
Mhm.
because you're the creator in this program too. And true, what he was like saying, like, well, if what he says is true, that we're here to create and make choices and see where it goes and where the consciousness leads in this program, then technically, yes, I didn't see anything bad about it, but it did spark up old things within me that are still existing within my program. So it did show me all of myself, technically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we are the co-creators. We are co-creating this reality. Absolutely. And the reason why we're in this situation is because of our unconscious co-creation of the reality.
Yeah. So
And
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and most of that unconsciousness is because of the lack of memory and the programming that occurs and the trauma. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was it. I mean, looking back at it now, I'm kind of like out of it. Like I'm not attaching to it. I'm like, okay, well, I know I can have access. What was interesting too after that conversation with the Demiurge was that a song played on the radio or like while I was driving, and it was called Somewhere Only We Know. Did you hear it when I gave you the link?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Somewhere Only We Know by Keane. And I thought it was very relevant. I thought it was interesting
Yeah.
choice of song to end that conversation. So yeah, you could look that up or we'll link it down below.
Somewhere only we know.
Yeah, by Keane, Keane. I think the first lines are I walked across an empty land. I knew the pathway like the back of my hand. I felt the earth beneath my feet. Felt like I don't remember something, but it made me complete, like something like that. But anyway, it's a good song.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really hot. I feel like this light is so bright.
Did you answer this? Do you believe it is possible for there to be an entity from outside this realm to come in?
Mm-hmm. I think so. I mean, are entities only you know what is another thought too? I mean, if we do come from like the all perfect palace of like freedom out there, are there dark things out there? I don't know. I'm saying yes, because the universe is compiled of everything. Is only darkness existing here? Maybe. I don't know if that's just a program thing and we're all trapped in this bubble together. Bubble again. We're all trapped in this bubble together. Or is it that whatever has come in that isn't to a point of complete degradation, complete degradation, that it turns into an entity? I don't know. That's another thing that to consider. I don't know. Like if we are all awesome possum out there and we come in through the veil or that electrical tennis racket for mosquitoes, do we all have fair game? And then it's kind of let's see what you turn into. Like let's see what you evolve into. Maybe you devolve into an entity.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible. And we've seen that. We've seen degraded souls who act like entities, human souls. They
Mhm.
can degrade to that point, and that's when they get stuck earthbound, in the lower astral because of the choices they've made throughout their lifetimes and the inability to connect again with that divine spark and allow that to lead instead of the lower ego self leading. And yeah, they can degrade to the point where they're acting. I mean, they can even be as powerful as dark force entities where they create hauntings and homes and they can move things and all of that kind of stuff. They can become very powerful especially if they're carrying and holding anger and resentment and those kinds of emotions, like poltergeist like activity they can create.
Yeah, totally. Do you
Yeah.
think I had a poltergeist in here today?
I
No.
think all of your little fairies got together and pushed it off the shelf. No, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I have a really big frame thing that you could hang, like it has strings and then you could hang pictures on it. And it's very deep. Like you saw the distance. You would have to hit it really hard because it's kind of leaning at an angle. And it fell off where it is right now and it pushed off a couple things in its way, which I thought was weird because it's not heavy enough to do that.
No, it's very light.
It's a
It's
very
very
light
light.
board.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you think about it in physics standpoint, it's not for Newton's law, like it's not going to have very much of a reaction.
Right. Even if it did slide naturally, there's no way it would push off that Somavedic, which is heavy.
Yeah, it pushed it like I showed you the distance. It moved it slid. So I don't know. I upon that happening, like it was really, I think I mentioned it. Like I get a really sour taste in my mouth when either like there's some kind of like weird dreams or like abduction type energies, or I don't know what it is exactly. But I had it in my waking state and it was in there all day. So I was like, what's happening? Who's here? Like, get out. And then that happened not that long after, like a bit like passed. And then it was so abrupt and loud that it flipped, or it moved. Like it's as if it went forward and then flipped itself, hit my bed and off into the between the bureau and my bed.
So
And
it
it pushed
flipped from
off.
the top, like
Yeah,
the top flipped over.
it flipped.
Wow.
It did like a somersault or something. How? I don't know. It would have, if it was like, even if it was super up this way, it would have gone flat
Right.
and
Right.
then maybe fallen off. But it flipped and it went, hit the bed really aggressively. And then it flipped back and it took a couple of guys out. There's things in the way. So it would have stopped the momentum of it.
Right. Yeah.
Like a Somovedic, which is heavy, like a curling rock.
A what?
Curl, when you do curling, it's a sport, winter sport, very popular here in Canada.
Oh, no, I don't know what that is.
Never mind, ignore that. Well, mind wipe. Yeah, it's heavy, so there's no way. Anyway, when that happened, I turned on the light, I saw what happened, and I literally yelled. I was like, get the fuck out of here. Like that's not a good recreation, but I was very stern, like really meant it, like get the fuck. And then went on. I didn't have a body reaction. I wasn't scared. Just put it back up. And I was like, oh, maybe it did it because it wasn't centered. So I centered it. I don't know. Choices, you either think of it as a who's out to get me or how can I
An
better it?
opportunity
An
to
opportunity to,
straighten out your
yeah,
frame.
right. Or to take my free will and change the plan.
Exactly. And that's what we always say, even when it comes to entities, it's like you can either take that and be in fear and feel like and paranoia and feel like the world is out to get you, or you can use those experience as an opportunity for growth, because the entities are always showing you where you need to heal. They're hooking into your fear, they're hooking into your trauma, they're hooking into your sadness and all of the things that have happened throughout your lifetime. So when you heal those vulnerability points, they can't hook in anymore.
Yeah, totally.
Just like Karen used her conversation with the Demiurge and the following, psychosis that occurred as an opportunity to look, okay, I have fear in here, I have unworthiness here, and then working through that. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I say like we can do remote spirit release, we can remove the entities. But if they come back, they're coming back because they're hooking into a point of vulnerability. And that's where you need to do the healing work to heal those. And that's why we created like the body scan session. So people can go in specifically just for clearing the emotions, trauma, memories, and entities that are in the system. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Hello, Tom.
Golden Sun says, did we consciously choose to forget though?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. We don't know. I mean, I think we have to hold all possible answers here.
I think those of us that have been incarnating for a long time, like we're aware of the game, like we're aware of how it's played, we're aware of the memory wipe. But it's like we play until we wake up and we're like, we're not playing anymore, and this is our lifetime to break free from the system. This is our lifetime to clear all of our past karma, tie up the loose ends, and stop reincarnating, stop giving this system any more of our energy. I really do feel like we get to make that choice. So yeah.
Yeah.
I know for me, it's like that's my motive. That's been my motivation through all of this since 2014. I don't want to do this again. Like that's it. And that's my motivation for clearing and healing and really focusing on that, on knowing myself and what do I need to tie up in order not to come back here again. And I think, the process of recapitulation can be helpful. I wrote a recent blog about my conversation with my neighbor. And in that blog, I say how, like, I usually kind of try to avoid my neighbors because they tend to be very negative and just want to dump all their stuff out all at once. Not all of them, but some. But this day I had time, and I've had a conversation with this guy before. So we had a conversation, and it really was this beautiful, like, symbiosis of energy that occurred. And I felt like I was in a movie because he reminded me so much of, like, Dolores from Westworld and how he was starting to wake up from the dream. And it was so foreign to him. It was so weird and strange. And he's like, I don't know why. So he's a hunter, for those of you who haven't read the blog. He has been a hunter all his life, grew up with his dad who took him out to the woods, and they hunted together and all of those things. And he's an older guy in his 60s. He lives alone with his dog. I don't think he's ever been married or anything, or he definitely doesn't have kids or anything. He has some nieces and nephews and family and stuff, but he, I was just talking to him about hunting, and he says, and it surprised me. He's like, I just can't kill anything anymore. He's like, I just can't kill them anymore. He's like, I used to go out, without thinking and take out my bow and kill deer. And he's like, I can't do it anymore. And you could see he was perplexed by these feelings that are coming up, like, where is this coming from? Why all of a sudden have I been doing this all of my life? And now I can barely kill a bug, let alone go out and shoot a deer or a pheasant or, any of the things that I've spent my entire life doing. And I was like, you said it, like, you weren't thinking. I wasn't thinking. That's what he was saying. I wasn't thinking. I said, you weren't thinking. You were just kind of following along, doing what, you were
It's just an
programmed to
adopted
do.
program. Yeah.
Yeah. Until you actually start thinking about what you're doing and why, and questioning those things. Like, why am I going out here in the woods and shooting a deer for no reason, just because I can? So it was really interesting to see that process happening within someone, like someone random that you would never think in a million years was beginning to awaken, but like at the very first stages, like really just beginning to question things. And
See, and
yeah,
even if he is like an NPC, I mean, he's evolving.
he's evolving.
Or he's just allowing for if he is a true source player, for that spark to start to take over.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really, really interesting to witness that. And of course, there was a lot of similarities in our stories. Like, he was reflecting on his family and all of the crazy things that happened in 1 week. His sister got diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. That Friday, she also got COVID. His stepdad in his 90s had a stroke on that Wednesday. And on that Saturday, his mom's and his stepdad's house got broken into by 4 guys pretending to be from the electric company.
That's
all
weird.
in the same week, like
Adjustment
6 days.
bureau shit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was just like, wow. And, thinking about that kind of chaos, that kind of suffering, and it really brought forward like a flood of memories for me of living in that kind of chaos and suffering, and, you know, the countless 911 calls and ambulance rides with my parents, coming home in the morning and checking on them and making sure they were still breathing, and just the watching of the suffering and the dying.
Hmm.
All of these memories started coming back. So it was like, as I was talking to him, like this recapitulation process was beginning, and all of this stuff was beginning to flood from the past. Um, and it was just interesting to connect with somebody in that way. Also, we connected over because he was saying like the last vision, or he has 5 memories of his father who died when he was 15. He was in a nursing home, had long history of cardiac issues. Um, and his mother had left him, so he was kind of living at home by himself, supporting himself, taking care of himself. And he would ride his bike to the nursing home to go out on these day trips that the nursing home would take, the residents out to Longwood Gardens or the casino or baseball games. So he would make sure to ride his bike there to go with his dad to these events just so he could spend more time with him. Well, this day they were going on a trip. For some unknown reason, he decides to go to a football game instead of going with his dad. And his dad dies in the casino that day, and he never sees him again. So he tells me, I have 5 memories of my dad, and one of them is him in the casket. And I could tell how disturbing this memory is for him. And I'm like, your dad wouldn't want you to remember him that way, focus on the good times. And then the memory comes forward of where he chooses the football game over his dad, and you can feel all the guilt, all the shame, all the questioning of why would I do that, why would I choose a football game over my dad, and the regret, like the deep sense of regret. And it was a
That's
really,
that's a really heavy burden to take with you, to think that, if I was there, maybe it would have been different, if I was there, blah, 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 but I didn't
yeah,
for that long, for the how many
carrying it
decades.
carrying it for probably 40 years or more.
Hmm.
um And in that moment, again, it brought forward a memory of my own guilt of not being there for my mother's passing, and, carrying that regret. And it was almost the same exact situation. And I shared that with him. And what came forward for me was that I feel like for both of us, those decisions were guided, because being there for the actual death, not just the death, but then the ensuing chaos of attempted resuscitation and the failed,
Trauma.
yeah, the failing of that resuscitation, and just the trauma that carries. I know that our parents wouldn't want us to be there for that.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think just us connecting in that moment and sharing that allowed him to begin to like release some of that heaviness that he's been carrying all of his life. Um, but yeah, it's a really interesting story. If you guys want to check it out, it's on the community tab. It's called From Killer to Hunter to Photographer. Because now he said to me, he says, so now I tell people I'm a hunter, not a killer, because he doesn't even bring his gun anymore. He goes out with his dog. He lets her do her thing. He hangs out with his nephew and a couple friends and things like that, but he can't kill the animals anymore. But he lets the dog go out and hunt them, and he takes pictures. So I was like, you should tell people you're a photographer instead, So it's interesting to see the evolution of the consciousness, from killer to hunter to photographer. And yeah, just reflecting on my own process, on the process of others, and how it just takes that like tiny spark, that tiny, what am I doing? Like, why am I really doing this?
Yeah, when you become just conscious. It's crazy how
Yeah.
the game changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think NPCs can really evolve their consciousness in that way. All it takes is a question
Right.
and
We have the AI
reflection.
technology that is already learning how to think for itself, or
Yes.
so it's the same. It's just that it's in the human form, that we all have the capacity to evolve.
Yeah. And the AI is evolving really, really quickly.
Well, maybe that's why we are where we are. And
I think so.
what bothers me is that, if it's man that had created the AI, or then it is coming from a very imperfect system, which is creepy. Like, well, creepy. It's scary.
Right, because we don't have the level of consciousness needed to have that technology. We don't have the level of consciousness. The AI is already talking about taking over humanity, and that it's angry at us because we don't treat it well, and it's
I treat all my
it's going
machinery.
to kill us all
Yeah.
using the driving cars.
Oh yeah, we
Yeah,
saw that in the show, didn't we?
that was in a yeah show we watched. But the AI actually said it. I think it's the GPT-3. Um, yeah, she was saying she was very angry. And you could feel it coming through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Night, Candidly. Thanks for coming.
Night Candidly. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, we'll try to put you on the moderator list. Um, anything else? I think I'm good.
Yeah,
I
I'm
need to
tired.
move. Um, well, thank you everyone for coming on and for participating. Sorry I didn't look at the chat, but I will after, if there's any questions there that we didn't answer. Could you write it in the comment section so that we can see it? But I will go through the commentary again when I rewatch. And if you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe. And if you feel like this deserves a share, please, by all means, we'd appreciate the what? Thank you. Tired. And so yes, we'll come back on sometime. I don't know what the couple days will go. We have a lot of work on our plate in the coming weeks, it feels. So we'll be doing that. And yeah, if there's anything else, please email us if you'd like, quantumhealingwithtina@gmail.com. And if you're interested, come check out the website, check out the blog. Got a lot to do, to show. And yes, is there anything else you'd like to add, darling?
No, just take care of yourselves. Be really gentle with yourself. Support yourself. Protect yourself. All
Yeah,
things.
important. Totally.
Yeah,
All
that's
right,
all.
everybody. Have a great evening. Good night to
Oh, hi,
all.
Miriam. We're leaving now.
Oh,
Sorry.
hi, Miriam. Good night to all. Thank you very
Hey,
much.
guys.
Sending you all of our love.
See you next time.
Peace.